Celine is
Yes.
is a tutor under our program called Tutor Match. Tutor Match is fairly new for fostering great ideas. It is this idea that every child, every youth in foster care deserves academic success, and we'll provide the tutor. Celine, with that, please go ahead. What brought you into this world? Please go ahead.
So the reason I decided to volunteer and tutor is because I have 3 grown children myself, and I really found that, you know, their tutors and their support network really help make a difference. So tutor math, and I'll be honest, I hated math in elementary school, and I hated math, period. And I think my 2 older children didn't like math. So one is a journalist for CBC News, and the other one is going to law school. But my youngest, I did things a little bit differently, because I found out from one of her tutors how that was so important to her. So my youngest didn't like math, and then she had a great tutor, and she is now in aerospace engineering. So from 3 of us who don't like math, and I tutor mathematics, my youngest is totally different from the other ones of us, including myself.
Totally different.
Totally different, right? She's a math wizard. But what made a difference is the support she received around, you know, somebody telling her she can do it, besides her mother, because her mother thought it was, you know, I had no ability to do, you know, no ability to think, hey, you know, how to help my daughter. And so one of the things is, like, you know, when I connected with the network, I'm like, you know what is the one subject that a child and a person takes with them everywhere they go in life, right? It's mathematics. When we shop for things, we need to know percentages. When we go to a restaurant, we need to know how much to leave as a tip. When we're signing a lease or a contract, you need to understand all the things with it. The other thing that for me was really important with math, and why I tutor math, is that, you know, academically, so my undergrad is in political science, and that's reading and writing, right? And everybody has an opinion on how you write. So, you know, I could think my essay is phenomenal, but my teacher is going to come back and she's going to say, oh, B or C or D even, right? And that's true for most of academic stuff, except mathematics. And one of the things I love about math and teaching math to children is that is the one thing that nobody, if you know your stuff, nobody can take that away from you. You know, 1 + 1 is 2. And the child and the person gets that sense of confidence, because if they get the answer right, nobody can tell them it was wrong. It's not an opinion, it's based on fact. So, you know, that was why I said, hey, you know what, if I can make a difference in a child's life, mathematics, even though that's not my fundamental, like, you know, proficiency, is something I can really help a child with and grow.
It's a remarkably important statement. We think about the difficulty of math, but you brought it down to the point of that is a point of a certainty, and every child can keep that with them as they move through their life. So thank you very much, Celine. That's excellent, excellent point. I'd like to ask you a question about when you saw the light bulb go off. You come into this tutoring concept for a child or youth in foster care. You come into the foster home. You commit to once a week tutoring. When do you see the light bulb go off, and how does that make you feel as a volunteer?
It makes me feel so rich. So I'll say one of the things that I'm in training and I help train people. And one of the things that I have a short attention span. So I don't know about everybody else, but really, like, I can get distracted easily. So a technique that yeah, exactly. So one of the techniques that I've tried to inspire is called the Pomodoro technique. So if any of you guys tutor or have kids or whatever, Pomodoro technique works really, really well. And it literally, you set it's a teaching tool, and you set your alarm for 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, you're supposed to take a 5-minute break. Do whatever you want for 5 minutes. So my child and I, or the child and I, were doing that. And then one day the bell rang, and it was our break time, so she can talk about anything she wanted. And she literally said, no, I want to keep going. And she didn't want to take her break. And I'm like,
that's great.
Wow. So that to me was like, no, I didn't need a break from her, but normally, you know, most children, you know, don't want to continue math or don't want to continue. And she was like, no, let's keep going, because she was getting it. And to me, that is such a rich experience.
You know, in this Zoom webinar approach, most people are on mute, but what you just said is so remarkably what we all feel. You know, the very nature of wanting to stay with that child during the difficulty and seeing the light bulb go off. So can we have an unmute? And if anybody would like to just share their reaction to Celine, I think that would be of value to everyone. Thank you.
Celine, thank you, number one, for doing what you do, and most especially for doing it in math. There aren't many who would take that on, particularly when they're not particularly fond of math. But thank you for doing that. But I'm inspired by what you say, and I think it's important for all of us to understand that the positivity of math gives something in our kids' lives of that positive experience when they are not having that as a child in foster care. Everything is up in the air, and there's nothing to ground them into any position. And it's wonderful, I think, for them to have that experience with you, to know that there is positive things in the world, and there is things that they can count on. And maybe we can piggyback on that philosophy in what we do with our children. So again, thank you. And it sounds like you do a fabulous job, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Kudos. Anyone else for the comment?
I just want to add for Celine that, just your statement alone of all this with the math and your students is you're really building their confidence, because for somebody, as you know, who does not feel very strongly in math and they feel like they get it, it really builds up their self-esteem of, hey, I can do this, and this doesn't have to be so scary. Because someone who hated math also, I have a really good math teacher who does help me get it. It's like, wow, because, math is such a complex thing for so many people. So when they do get it, it's like, there's so many people who they look back on their math tutor and they're like, wow, they really changed it for me. Because I guarantee in the years to come, she's going to put more effort into math because of a great math tutor like you.
Yeah. I can't be great though, I'll be honest. So I tell her she's teaching me, and that's the other thing, right? I mean, it's been a while since I've been in, my math classes. And so literally I'll say, hey, you know what? Why don't you show me what your teacher did, and let's do it together, and we learn together. So that's the other thing is like, so I was a little intimidated by going, okay, I'm going to do math, but I'll say we learn together. And I think that her teaching me, and I'm not kidding, it's like we do this together, really helps both of us. So that's the other thing is when she knows, hey, you know what, we're doing this together and we both are going to like learn this together. It really shows her, hey, I can do this, because guess what? You're helping me learn this too.
That's great. You get a lot of validating nods out there in the Zoom land. So thank you very much, Celine. You provided clarity to the priority of volunteering, its purpose, and the joy of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are going to now move to the second level of volunteering that we are highlighting today under the theme, Volunteers Improve Everything, especially in foster care when so much uncertainty exists. The certainty is often the volunteer. It's a person who says, I stand up and I will commit myself to a relationship that will be meaningful to me and hopefully to a child. So now we move to guardian ad litems, or CASAs as they're known nationally. The guardian ad litem program within South Carolina or in Richland County, CASA, or nationally CASA, is very well received and a beautiful program that allows the voice of a child to be heard. I'll keep you at that point, and now I'll introduce Amy Karmelovich and Sharon Kirell and ask the initial question to both you. Why is this subject matter important to you? And then I'd like you to go into what is this sense of volunteering, the CASA experience. Amy, Sharon, thank you for joining us.
Okay, I'll go. I've been doing this about 17 years, and it's a extremely rewarding to work with a child and to get their feelings about what they want, and not that I always advocate for what they want, because sometimes it's just not possible or it's just not realistic. But I feel like when I talk to a child and I listen to them and I talk to their parents and I talk to their grandparents and I talk to their teachers and their psychiatrists and their social workers, I can get a good feeling for, where this child is and what's in their best interest. And one of the things that's amazing to me is how well we are received by the courts. I think because we're unbiased, we don't have an agenda, and nothing against caseworkers, but they have a certain agenda and they have certain rules and regulations they have to follow. We're kind of given a lot more scope as to what we want to see. And I think the judges really listen to us, and it's just so satisfying. The first couple times it's scary, but when you realize how much the court system depends on that independent voice of the guardian ad litem, it kind of makes it all worthwhile.
Thank you, Amy. That's a great rundown of why the voice is important, why that volunteer is so critical. Sharon, your thoughts?
Well said, Amy. You hit it right on the nail. For me personally, it's self-rewarding, which makes me want to get up in the day and feel like I'm productive and doing something that's positive. My experience in the foster care world began as a foster parent. And that experience often showed me that the parents of the children who we were temporarily taking care of were often misunderstood, disrespected, and often not supported. And I felt that part of being an advocate for a child is to be an advocate for a parent as well. And I wholeheartedly believe in reunification, and will work towards that as hard as I possibly can until a parent or parents show me that they cannot or are not interested in regaining custody. They are not supported. Parents are not supported, in my estimation, enough to get their kids back. Only by the grace of God, I was given parents who did not struggle without a job, did not struggle being in poverty, were fortunate to have an education and could pass that along to me. So those are the very minimum things that we should try to instill in our parents, that those issues are not your fault. That's a set of circumstances, and it's not that you don't love your children. You love your children, I'm sure you do. But I think if we can validate their plight along the way, they're going to feel like, well, you know, everybody isn't against me, and maybe I can do that. So that's sort of why I like to stay in. The second thing that's important to me as a guardian and as a volunteer is that the resiliency in our children to weather the storm that they have as a tragic childhood is often developed by the relationships that they have with the people who are in their lives. And if we can instill positive attitudes, then their resilience to go forward is going to develop as well. The third thing that I think is important for a guardian and a CASA volunteer is that we are often the only stable entity from the beginning of the case till the end of the case. And that's huge, because we can go into a courtroom and we can say, we've been here for 18 months. Nothing has disrupted our placement with this child. And I think that validates our position in the courtroom as well. And if just quickly to just sort of piggyback on what Amy was saying about the influence of the court system, I can speak to Anderson County and Spartanburg County, and the value that the guardian and CASA programs have in our court system is huge. We often can change a child's life by disagreeing with a DSS decision. We have the privilege of not having the statutes that DSS often has to work within. Just to give you an example, DSS has a policy that states that if there is any background of a physical confrontation, a domestic violence situation, a child cannot be placed in a home, even though that may have been 20 years ago. They can't recommend it. We can as guardians recommend that after our investigation shows that it was, just a moment in history and things have gone well after that. So that's important. That's to us, that's it makes all the difference in the world.
There's some powerful words. I'm glad this is all on recording, because everything you said is, it takes a while to absorb it all. What I heard is so powerful. Is just giving people a sense of being heard, validated, and then their route becomes much more normalized versus trying to catch up to the stress of this entire system monitoring you. Amy, thank you, Sharon. Amy, would you like any final words in this nature, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
I'll just follow up with what Sharon said about the regulations that DSS has to follow, because sometimes, they're made to keep the child safe, but in certain situations, they just don't make sense. And I mean, I've even had caseworkers that have just said, I can't put that out there. And they don't say, but you can put that out there, but it's kind of implied. I mean, I had one situation where a child was not being placed in a home because the fire marshal hadn't come out to see the smoke detectors, and they were far behind, and it was in a very nice apartment complex. We had a letter from the super. I went and I looked at the alarm, and I went to the judge and I said, this is just, not right. And the judge is like, yeah. And we got out of court, and the DSS worker is like, well, I'm glad, you brought that up, because that's something I couldn't. It's kind of like, I think in most situations, the guardian and the DSS worker are a really good counterbalance to each other. And a lot of times I disagree with DSS. And a lot of times when I make those disagreements, the DSS worker will look, and a lot of times we come to an agreement and sometimes we don't. But I think it's really important because the guardian speaks for the child. DSS speaks for the family. So we are the child's advocate, whereas DSS is for the family. And sometimes those do conflict, but most of the time I think we can work it out.
That is really powerful and really closes out our guardian ad litem CASA side. A definition of the guardian ad litem of the CASA, their purpose and how they work within a system that has significant amount of stress, a significant amount of agendas as a system juggles all of this. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sharon, very much. I would like to close out the guardian ad litem CASA conversation with one or two questions from the field. Does anyone have any questions or comments back to Amy or Sharon? Anybody?
Well, I have a question from the child's perspective, being in foster care. Once the child is old enough, and I guess it's depending on the maturity and everything, but how does the guardian ad litem talk to the child about knowing, hey, it's okay to talk to me about things that you may not be comfortable talking to other people about? Because I feel that some of the kids don't know that role as a guardian ad litem.
Go ahead, Amy.
Well, I was just going to say, it depends a lot on the age of the child and their maturity. I always, at my first meeting, explain who I am and that they can talk to me. It's important that they open up, but you don't want to promise them that you're never going to tell anybody what they say, because legally I can be put on the stand and I could be asked questions by a defense attorney. So I can't promise that I'm not going to betray their confidence, because legally I can't promise that. But I can say that, I am here for you. I am your advocate. If the child is young, I just say, you know what, I'm going to be your special friend, and you can tell me what's going on in your life. And then I'm going to talk to the judge and tell them what you said. For an older child, I'm probably going to be more upfront and say, I am your advocate. but my job is to tell the judge what's in your best interest. So you need to be open and honest with me. I cannot promise that I'm going to agree with you, but I promise that I will always listen to everything you say to me.
I think, yeah, Amy, that's exactly what needs to be done. And it's a process. Like you establish a relationship with anybody else, you have to build that trust as you go along. And hopefully, that there will be an aha moment and the child understands, well, you truly are my friend. If it's a younger child, I always ask them to give me one job to do when I leave the house, and report back the next time I see them and say, guess what, here's what you told me to do and I did it. And that sort of says, well, maybe she really did listen and she really does care what's happening. Older children are a bigger nut to crack, and probably rightfully so, because no adult has really paid any attention to them in a very long time. So I rely on the professionals in that child's life, the psychiatrist and the therapists that are involved, school teachers, to let me know what the best approach is to take with the child. And I think then we at least have some kind of a starting point from there to go forward. But it's fun. And if you keep it fun, you always can leave the house with at least a smile on your face, which makes the day for everybody.
Thank you both, Amy, Sharon. Very important work that you do, and hopefully we have some folks who would like to be guarding Litems or CASAs from your conversation. Sharon, you had ended with older children are a tough nut to crack, I believe is your phrase. That will go viral on the internet, I'm quite sure. Has anyone ever been an adolescent before, and were they tough nuts to crack? Anyone out there?
I know I was. My dad told me every day, oh my gosh, where'd you come from?
And we're going to transition to one of those wonderful nuts. So Kayla, Racine, and Laura Hamby, her mentor of years and years and years, a relationship that has been profound to me, just seeing you both share your relationship with each other. Thank you, Laura, as the mentor. Thank you, Kayla, as the mentee, the adolescent who is now a young adult and doing quite well, I hope, at college. Certainly wears the orange of University of Tennessee proudly. Now in Clemson land, where I'm from, that orange is definitely something that would be for another conference call, and I might have some difficulties with that. But for now, Laura, Kayla, tell us a little bit about your relationship, why mentoring specifically is so important to you both. Thank you for your time.
Kayla came into my life rather suddenly on a Sunday morning. Her house parents at the children's home she was living at brought her to my church. And for the next year or so, she and her housemates filed in a couple rows in front of us. And over that year, we kind of developed a relationship. She was 11 when we met, and I'm a Christian, and I just felt like the Lord had just dropped her in my lap, and I needed to pursue her and get to know her. And that's what I did. And I think what I've learned is the most important thing about mentorship is just the stability, as Sharon said, of one person in a child's life. In our case, I followed her through 9 placements, 2 guardian ad litems, 3 caseworkers, 3 cities, and just followed her wherever she went, even to Columbia. We started out in Greenville. I'm in Greenville, she's in Columbia. But yeah, I just have really valued the opportunity to just develop a friendship with her and It's so sweet now. She'll come pass through Greenville and spend the weekend with our family, and just love Kayla like she's my own.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Um,
Kayla?
this like whole mentoring just with me and Alora, like our relationship, it's just been so important to me because like she said, we met at 11 and at first I didn't really like them. You know, there's always people that try to come into your life and try to fix everything for you. And I just really wasn't like, I already had enough of that. I wasn't having it. I thought she was like another one of those people that were like, I'm going to fix all your problems and I'm going to make everything better. But
Right.
I realized that she, as like I continue to get to know her and her family, how they truly like wanted a relationship with me. They wanted to get to know me. And they just continue to prove their consistency of love towards me over and over and over. Like she said, like after placement, those people and the people that I live with, the house parents, the group homes, they couldn't deal with me. They didn't handle me. They decided to send me somewhere else. But Laura is somebody that never left me. And so that relationship is something that's just very important because she's been like you guys said, the stability, like she's been there for me and she's been able to help me through things in my life. She's been able to give me advice. She's been able to lead me and just be a big impact on learning who I am and understanding things as a woman.
So well said. I'm beginning to think about crying. I don't know if anybody else is. Would anybody
Yes.
like to validate or say thank you or any comments to Laura and Kayla?
I would to you both. Laura, thank you for always being there. And it's obviously in what Kayla is saying that you have changed her life. And, you know, that's kudos in heaven. And we should all be grateful for that. And Kayla, thank you for listening. Thank you for opening up your heart and allowing somebody to come into your world. That has changed your life, and obviously you love her and she will always be part of your life, and you're very fortunate to have somebody who has followed you through thick and thin, and congratulations to you both for developing that wonderful relationship.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just so important because there's so many other kids out there like me that don't have a Laura, that don't have maybe they do have a guardian at Litem, but they don't have like somebody that's consistently there for them. And I could say personally, from my perspective, I know that God put her in my life for a reason. And I'm just like grateful, so grateful for that, because there's a lot of kids that don't have that. And that's something that always hurts my heart that I think about. I know personally for me, like with doing track and field and with being so successful, Laura plays a big part of that as well. And it's just like I've been trying to find like my why and why I keep going and why I want to continue to track, why I want to continue to just be successful is for other kids like me so that they can have an example that they can make it through. Whether they have a Laura or not, they can look at someone like me and be inspired and be like, well, like she can do this, then I can make it through and just have like a different push, because some people have had things handed to them and I'm not one of those people. My plate has been different. I've been missing food on my plate. I've been having to put it on there myself and be able to manage with myself. But I've been making a way and having people like Laura back me up. And then now my family that backs me up in the things that I do. So just being able to be an advocate for other kids like me as I get older and just be able to show them that no matter their past, whether they're in foster care, whether they're private placement, whether they're just staying somewhere, like they can come out of that and be something greater if they just continue to push through.
Well, Kayla, well said, sweetheart. And you can make a huge difference going forward. I know you've got a lot on your plate going in the next few years. It's going to be exciting times, but keep that in the back of your mind always, to smile at a child and say, you can do this, because you're certainly going to influence many, many young individuals, because you're a wonderful young lady. And I know Laura is very proud of you. I am, and I only know you for just a few minutes. So kudos to you, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Kayla has said so much that it's almost like, where do we go from here, peeps? It was, thank you. Okay, the tear just sort of came in. That's coming. All right, so we have about 10 minutes left. I'd like to finish off with one more relationship, and that is another mentor relationship. Volunteers improve everything. And it's a mentor relationship of a husband and wife. And they decided to mentor two different youth. The wife, Pam, mentored a girl, and Todd mentored a guy. And the rapport they have with this guy still shows the exact nature of what Kayla and Laura just spoke about, which is consistency. I am here always, regardless of everything else that happens in life. And that is the beauty of it. They even decided to become foster parents. And that's another beautiful story. So Todd, Pam, the floor is yours. Take it from here. Why is this subject matter of volunteering so important to you both?
Well, for me, you know, the word has been said many times through many different people here, but the key is consistency and trust that you build with the individual that you are mentoring. It just, I felt like we only did teenagers, so we were even more of a glutton for punishment. But, you know, not having that consistent person in their life. They've had everything else taken away from them. They may go through 3, 4, and in one of our instances, 6 different caseworkers, 3 different guardian ad litems. And as in Laura's position, we stayed in touch. We still stay in touch, but we just never let go, letting them know, because one of the difficult things is, you know, a hard nut to crack is very true. Unless you can gain their trust and their knowing that you're going to be there no matter what, it just won't work out. And so I've lost my train of thought. I'm old and have raised way too many children and too many grandchildren, and I teach 2- and 3-year-olds on a full-time basis. So it's I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my thought process together. I'm going to let Todd take over while I do that.
Well, great, Pam.
I think when we made the transition from mentoring to fostering this young man, we talking about establishing that trust. I think even at that point, and I wish Sean were on here because he could confirm this, but I think at this point he still wasn't necessarily trusting of us when we brought up the idea of him moving in to our home, and he knew, and we knew at the time he was never going to be returning I guess he was 14 at the time. 14, yeah. To his family. So he was living in a group home at the time. And I think he saw us as an opportunity to avoid the rules of the group home. And he was going to come and move in with us, and there were going to be any rules, and he'd be able to manipulate us. And so initially it was, I think, it was pretty rough for him. It was very rough. Because there were rules, and they weren't unreasonable. They were rules that we managed with our own children, and but it didn't take long. I think he ultimately understood it and understood the importance. That doesn't mean he always followed the rules. I mean, it was a challenge all the way up through graduating high school and moving on. And in fact, the way he ended up leaving us was I wouldn't say tragic because it worked out in the end, but a month before high school graduation, he decided that he had enough of our rules. And this was after 2.5 years of living with us. Yeah. And he had saved enough money. He bought his own car. And that, I guess, gave him what he thought was the independence to just do what he wanted to do. He had turned 18 at that point. So he did have the choice, and he left and in anger. But now, make a long story short, like Pam mentioned, we still maintain contact with Sean. He's living in Texas. He calls us on Mother's and Father's Days and on our birthdays at the very least. We talk outside of those times as well. And he's we from what he communicates with us now makes us realize that what we did was really worth it, because he's now getting it, and is really maturing, and has some goals, and there's some challenges for him for those goals of either going on to college or maybe even into the military, but he still sees us, he still calls us mom and dad. So we've again established that relationship as mentors, ultimately becoming foster parents. But I guess the other thing I'll mention about mentoring, even as a foster child or transitioning to foster parents, we thought there was still a need for him to have a mentor outside of us, because we kind of transitioned out of that mentoring role and became more of a parental role for him. But you know, there were a couple people while he was living with us that kind of served as mentors for him. So there's that special role of a mentor that goes beyond, or maybe not necessarily beyond, but is in addition to what the parental role can be, you know. And so
Todd, that's an excellent point. And as a guardian, we're restricted with the involvement that we can have with our kids that we are making recommendations for. And unfortunately, that I think is a lack in our program. I think there's a rapport that can be built if you're sitting at a restaurant table, or if you're going to a movie and you're coming out. That movie can open up all kinds of conversations and things going forward. So you and your wife have done marvelous work, and it's wonderful to see that you understood the different needs of people in a child's life, because we all serve a different purpose. God puts us in on a road, and it has an end, but there's many roads that lead into a child's life. And when we have wonderful people like this to team up, and be an advocate for children, it's overwhelming to me how wonderful the program can work when you have wonderful volunteers to work with a child.
We have 2 minutes left. So go for it, Pam.
I just wanted to say, I want to add, I think part of the reason we also decided to foster was twofold. One, we felt like he was going to be aging out of the system and then never have a place he could call home. And I think the second thing that I recognize the difference between mentoring and fostering, as a mentor, I found it difficult to relay what we were seeing or what we were experiencing with DSS and with the guardian, and making sure that those that are in those positions that can make decisions are hearing out the mentors. I think a lot of information can come from a mentor as well.
I agree.
Well, yes, it's true. It's so true that volunteers, from your point, as we'll end with, improve everything, and we can underline that a couple of ways. So thank you all. I would like to end this last 1 minute with a thank you from all of us to Kayla, to Laura, to Celine, to Sharon, to Amy, to Pam, and to Todd. You can all go unmute, and I would like to state this one final statement, which comes from Tori Schuler, who runs our Denver work. Tori said, quote, "She never left me." Words of Kayla. "She never left me" is poignant. I'm a former foster youth too, and that means more than anything. We'll leave with those words in a final congratulations, a final approval, a final appreciation from all of you as you unmute, as we say goodbye today. Thank you.
David, thank you for what you do. You hold us together, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla, especially.
You're welcome.